When multiple parties act negligently to cause a single injury, the legal system faces a complex distribution problem, allocating financial ruin across everyone responsible. Historically, the common law addressed this through the doctrine of joint and several liability. For centuries, this rule served as the undisputed baseline for tort recovery. The term several indicates more than one tortfeasor. The plaintiff identifies multiple distinct defendants responsible. The joint component creates a significant burden, each tortfeasor liable for the entire damage award, regardless of their actual calculated fault. While a plaintiff is strictly prohibited from collecting duplicative payments for the same injury, they are legally entitled to extract the entire monetary judgment from any single defendant they choose. This rule remained the standard until a widespread jurisdictional shift introduced a competing framework, comparative fault. Comparative fault discards the blunt application of equal liability. Instead, it requires the fact finder to determine a precise mathematical percentage of responsibility for every party involved in the accident. This shift creates a direct structural conflict. Courts must now reconcile a modern mathematical system where a defendant might be only 10% responsible, with traditional rules that can still hold that same party 100% legally liable for the payout. To see how courts attempt to apply proportional allocation in practice, we can map out a standard textbook hypothetical. This bar represents a total financial award. The fact finder has assigned specific fault percentages to each party. Defendant A is 60% responsible, Defendant B is 30%, and Defendant C is 10%. Under pure comparative allocation, the court strictly divides the liability. The individual payments are calculated to match the exact proportions of fault assigned by the jury. This clean mathematics is disrupted the moment it encounters a common real-world variable, insolvency. If Defendant A, holding the 60% share, goes bankrupt and cannot pay, the money disappears. This creates a legal dilemma regarding who must cover the resulting void in the damages pool. Jurisdictions split on the solution. We will look first at states that maintain a strict interpretation of joint and several liability. In those states, the solvent defendants, B and C, are forced to absorb A's missing 60% share. Their own payments increase proportionally to ensure the plaintiff is made whole. In contrast, many reform jurisdictions shift the burden of insolvency away from the remaining defendants. In these alternate systems, the plaintiff is forced to absorb a portion of the defaulting tortfeasor's share. This deduction is typically based on the plaintiff's own percentage of comparative negligence. Proportional fairness in these cases is fragile. When a major party becomes insolvent, the math collapses, and the financial shock must be absorbed by either the remaining defendants or the plaintiff. Comparative math is also frequently disrupted before trial through pretrial settlements. It is critical to distinguish between two legal terms. First is satisfaction, the receipt of full compensation, which completely extinguishes the claim against all potential tortfeasors. A release is a surrender of a claim against only one named party. Executing a release allows a plaintiff to settle with one defendant while preserving the right to pursue the remaining parties for their share of the injury. This ledger tracks how different approaches impact a $10,000 jury award. In this hypothetical, Defendant A is 70% at fault and Defendant B is 30%. If Defendant A settles early for a low offer of only $1,000, they are removed from the trial regardless of their final assigned fault. Under Approach 1, the jurisdiction dictates a strict dollar-for-dollar deduction. The $1,000 settlement is subtracted from the $10,000 total, leaving a $9,000 balance. This forces Defendant B to pay the remaining $9,000. Effectively, B pays $90,000. Approach 1 protects the plaintiff's recovery but shifts the risk of a bad settlement entirely onto the non-settling defendants. Approach 2 protects those non-settling defendants but shifts the financial risk of a low settlement directly onto the plaintiff. When a defendant is forced to pay more than their comparative share due to joint and several rules, they must turn to secondary legal mechanisms for recourse. The first of these mechanisms is contribution. Contribution is a distinct legal action where a tortfeasor who has overpaid seeks equitable, partial reimbursement from their co-tortfeasors. There is a major public policy exception. Intentional tortfeasors are entirely precluded from seeking contribution. Courts will not accommodate an intentional wrongdoer seeking to shift their burden. A second, more comprehensive mechanism is indemnification. Unlike contribution, indemnification is a demand for total 100% reimbursement, shifting the entire liability to another party. This is typically triggered by strict vicarious liability, such as an employer paying for an employee's negligence, or a pre-existing indemnification contract between parties. Joint and several liability ensures the plaintiff is paid swiftly, but contribution and indemnification are the secondary battles defendants fight to reach proportional fairness. The practical reality of these rules is best understood through a high-stakes, real-world application. It illustrates why this doctrine is the subject of intense debate. In Garris v. Phoenix, a fatal collision was caused by a highly intoxicated driver attempting to elude police during a high-speed chase. When the case reached a jury, they were tasked with allocating the relative responsibility of each party involved. The jury assigned the drunk driver 95% fault, the tavern 3%, and the city 2%. But the deceased driver left zero funds. Under joint and several liability, the city, despite 2% responsibility, became the deep pocket target, forced to pay 100% of the damage award. This outcome represents a significant paradox. A legal system designed for fairness essentially forced a party with nominal liability to carry the entire financial burden. Cases like Garris are why legal scholars frequently criticize the doctrine as a form of legalized extortion against deep-pocket entities. In response, numerous states have enacted oppressive reform statutes. Many now limit or eliminate joint and several rules, such as California's decision to restrict the doctrine strictly to economic damages. The final resolution of a tort claim is dictated by a volatile matrix of fault percentages, strategic settlement timing, and jurisdictional caps. These variables are now as critical to the outcome as establishing the initial duty and breach.